Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. I'm Glazer of the Snap Judgments podcast. Before we go any further, like and subscribe for the best Marvel Snap Takes every weekday. Today, Leader is back. After yesterday's patch notes, Leader is back in the meta, and I think he's immediately going to be oppressive again. But first, as promised, I've been saying it all week, it's Wednesday, and Wednesday is the new giveaway. You can get one of two things. You can get a Hitmonkey Season Pass if that's something you're still looking for, or this coming Tuesday, I will buy you your Token Tuesday. All you have to do if you want that Token Tuesday or Hitmonkey for free is subscribe and like the video that you see this in. Obviously, right now we're going to talk about Leader. There'll be another video tomorrow and then another video Friday. Whichever one, like that video, subscribe, and in the comments, tell me what deck you think is best in the meta after the patch notes. Yes, the patch notes were, in fact, yesterday. These patch notes buffed Leader and took care of a lot of other cards. You've seen enough videos going over these patch notes in great detail by now. I've seen them, they're everywhere. But if you want a really detailed, long, thorough breakdown, Snap Judgments podcast will be out later today, and it will have a full description of those patch notes, a full breakdown of what the decks that these cards go in, the decks that survive, the decks that change, what's new, and what all of that means. We're going to look at what I think, outside of the Shuri nerf, is the most important change, the most important card. That is Leader. Leader went from a 6/7 with fundamentally no ability to 6/2 on reveal. Copy the enemy's cards with the highest power played this turn, but on your side. Now, that means two things. First, it's going to copy the highest power thing your enemy plays, whether that be null, whether that be, literally anything. Whether that be Devil Dinosaur, whether that be Death, so on. Great. The other thing that means, since it's only copying likely one big thing, is that you really, really, really want to limit the amount of cards your opponents can play. Well, most of the best decks in the game right now want to play a giant last turn, which suggests Leader shouldn't be that good, right? Your Hitmonkey decks, your double She-Hulk decks want to flood the board on the last turn of the game. That weakens Leader severely, especially if you're going first and you wouldn't get any buffs on something like Hitmonkey. That's a problem, very obviously, right? Leader should be bad. Okay, but what if there are two other cards in the game, Wave and Sandman, that say on the last turn the opponent can only play one or maybe two cards? Well, that would change things, because now the better of those cards you're getting with Leader. Specimen, fantastic creator, ginormous, everyone knows him, created this Doomwave deck. The idea of this deck is to play a bunch of really strong stuff early. Stuff like Sunspot, Lizard, Mr. Fantastic, in order to gain priority and power early and take a lead on the board. That's when Leader is strongest. It's also got Goose to limit your opponent's plays, because you have several ways to get into a Goose lane with stuff like Mr. Fantastic and later Doom. And it's got Iceman for a bit of control, because messing up, say, a Sarah or a Hitmonkey's cost is a really good way to win these games. And he runs Maximus. This is the one change I made to the deck. I prefer Agent Coulson, because I like having something to do on 4, and I like to make sure that if my curve gets messed up, if I don't see Wave, for example, on 5 or Arrow on 5, I'm not stuck playing weaker cards then. I can instead hopefully pull out something from Coulson, and it makes it really hard for the opponent to play around me. Okay. So the idea on 5 is to Wave. If you don't have Wave, Arrow, or whatever you get from Coulson is fine. Just passing with Sunspot is not the end of the world, although obviously far less ideal. At that point, you better hope you have She-Hulk and Arrow to play on 6. If you Wave on 5, your She-Hulk will cost 2 the next turn, allowing you to play a 4. So you will be adding 9 power plus 2 plus whatever one card they are able to play with that Wave. That's just going to win a lot of games, right? This is, I think, one of the better ways to play this matchup. It's a really great cube grabber, because your opponent is not always ready for you to have this combo. A lot of the cards in this deck, Iceman, Sunspot, Lizard, Mr. Fantastic in particular, are just good stuff cards. So this deck doesn't tell your opponent what you're doing. You've got like a 5-6% extra chance of being waved by 5 by playing America Chavez. You don't really want to draw it. You're getting less of a chance to see one of your other 6s on 6, but I think the extra chance for wave is enough. 6% is a lot in this game. Cool. I think this deck has one big claim over our next deck, which is Death Wave. Its big strength over Death Wave is that Death Wave makes what it's doing obvious. This deck, by running good stuff cards, does not. The non-obvious deck, therefore, is more likely to grab more cubes, but I think the Death Wave is just more powerful, more consistent. A lot of that comes from the Bucky Barnes Carnage, Bucky Barnes Deathlock combo, being 10 or 11 power on turn 2, 3, 4 is really a ton of power. At here, you want to just kill a bunch of stuff. Again, you're aiming to wave on 5, and then She-Hulk, Death, Leader, Arrow. Some combination thereof. Again, they can only play one card. You can play 2 or 3 that are extremely strong. If you're dropping a 9, a 12, a 2, plus whatever their one card was, you basically win that game. Arrow works as almost a mini leader in this deck. If they can only play one thing, it goes where you want. Your 9 and or 12 should win another location. Super strong deck. I really, really, really like America in this, but she just doesn't fit anymore, unfortunately. I like America largely because, again, 5-6% for wave on 5 is amazing. This deck is slightly lower power, but around similar consistency to Doomwave. The America in Doomwave versus having both Death and She-Hulk in this deck is the fundamental difference here. Next, I think this is my pick for what's going to be the best deck in the meta right now. People are not going to play this enough because, honestly, it's not very fun. I've got 1 or 2 big question marks for how to play this deck. Fundamentally, I like Claw as a mini Doom in these decks more than I like Captain Marvel. But Captain Marvel, Claw, and Devil Dinosaur are all possibilities here at that point, and most people disagree with me on this. I'm probably cutting Lizard or Psylocke. Everyone says don't run Psylocke, but with Psylocke, America, and 2 other ramp cards, I've got like 97% chance to see a ramp by 3, which means this deck always works at least a little. The goal of this deck is fundamentally to, by hook or by crook, get Sandman out on 4. If you get Sandman out on 4 and you snap before, all those other decks that want to flood the board have now lost. Their game is over. If Electro is the key other card you can see, hence America being in it to set up these combos, if you can get that going, your ideal play is Electro into Sandman, into Doom, into Odin or Leader, or into Leader Odin, as the case may be. Either one of those, when one card is played, just wins the game. The game is over. You've won. Have a great day. There's nothing in the game that really stops it. Almost. We're going to talk about the couple things I think do stop it. Claw is also an excellent play. If you end up Psylocking into Claw and then you play Sandman or Arrow, that's perfectly fine. The big place where I think that Devil Dinosaur is better than Claw is when you wave. If you wave and then go into a 6 on turn 5, Arrow's fine, and Sandman is very good if you're playing a flood deck, but Devil Dino is at that point significantly better than Claw, I think. I'm calling this the Meta Tyrant. I think this is going to be the best deck. I think that any deck that makes it fundamentally impossible for what should be 60 to 70% of the meta until this spreads to win is going to be absolutely must play. Nothing stops other cards like Sandman. If you don't see Sandman and you're running into a flood deck, don't be afraid to hold wave until 5 and then just wave on 5 either. If you have that Electro or Psylocke, let's say you Psylocke into a Claw or an Arrow on 3 to 4, then on 5, if you're playing a flood deck, don't be afraid to wave. limit their plays, and then you can still play the big thing as you were planning in the first place. This deck has a ton of play lines and is absolutely stellar. There's one card I'm not as sold on anymore. It's Sunspot. Sunspot ends up basically a 1-3 most of the time, unless you see Electro. Because you'll see Sunspot on 1 and end up skipping 2, and then you'll have an extra energy at some point along the curve. Um, it's fine. It probably actually goes by now. We'll take a longer look at that later. But this is the deck. Let's that should dominate most of what you're gonna see. There are two big counters I can think of to this that are in the current meta. That just straight up should roll this. The first is Counterhawk. This is a Darkhawk Dino deck. We've all seen them before. This one runs several answers to your Wave and Sandman type cards. First, it runs its own leader. That does an awful good job of countering. It should have enough power, thanks to Zabu, to get some power out early before the shenanigans really begin. Spider-Man is really good in that only Doom can really stop, can really get in that lane from this deck. And if there's Spider-Man and basically anything else, you're going to win that Doom Spider. And even Korg will win that, will tie that. Spider-Man and Sentinel will win that lane, for example. The other thing that this deck does really well is it maintains hand size with Coulson and Sentinel and throws rocks in the deck with Rockslide and Korg, which means that if these cards get copied by a leader, yours will be bigger than theirs. If yours are bigger because your hand is bigger or there are more cards in their deck, that's a win. Finally, against the wave versions, if you see a wave coming, or you just have She-Hulk and don't have Devil Dino but have several of these other cards, you can always pass on 5, She-Hulk, and Darkhawk and Korg, for example, on the last turn of the game. Or if you have Zabu out, She-Hulk, and Darkhawk is 4 plus a Sentinel. And then you're spreading out enough power that you should still be able to take out the opponent. That double play. Zabu also offers just if there is a if there is a play of Wave for you to just play Darkhawk and Rockslide on the last turn of the game, or Darkhawk and a card that comes out of Coulson. There's one other counter, and it's our old friend, Shuri. Shuri has 2 real answers to leader and barely play any cards. The first answer is fundamentally that your opponent wants to play 1 card and wants it to be bigger than yours. Well, your 24 power Red Skull and then your 24 power Taskmaster are bigger than anything they do. You're so big that you win that matchup. The other real answer that this has to that matchup is, let's say you're playing smaller things toward the end of the game. Leader is a terrible copy for Taskmaster. It's going to copy some other card that's not Red Skull, assuming, and at that point, well, you are ahead, right? Because you're copying a 24 power Red Skull or 9 power She-Hulk or a 10 power Typhoid, so on. I think this deck may be one of the meta's best decks, just because it has so many crazy play lines. You can Shuri into Typhoid if you get Sauron out. You can Shuri into Typhoid Mary, Shuri into Pass, and then play She-Hulk, Maw, Titania, Zero, Lizard, and just spam out cards. This should be able to play both games, both the I Go Tall, classic Shuri Taskmaster game, and the I Can Go Wide with these other cards. In addition, since you have Sauron, Typhoid Mary becomes a good card again. Shang-Chi is dangerous, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 potential threats, and then a bunch of things that duck under it that are really, really strong. You can even Shuri one of the smaller cards to put it in a location if you want to flood. There's a whole lot of stuff to do with this deck. It should be really strong, and it should basically answer everything. I don't expect it to be wholly popular yet. I don't think that people are ready for it. That's the deck. I hope you like it. I hope you're ready for Leader to be everywhere, and I hope you're ready with our plans to either play it and win some cubes or play one of these counters and take advantage of it. That's today's Snap Take. Make sure you check back tomorrow. Let me know what you think the strongest deck in the meta is in order to win either a Season Pass or a Token Tuesday. See you tomorrow.